recorded. Now, I'm more than happy to introduce you to Ilaria Fava. She's managing editor at the Directory of Open Access Journals. She also deals with many open science initiatives around the world and in Europe. And today she will introduce you to the Directory of Open Access Journals. At this point, I'm inviting Ilaria to join. Please, Ilaria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aya. And sorry for the noise in the background, but my husband is answering to the bell. And I'm sharing my presentation now. Can you please confirm you can see it?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, perfect. And the noise in the background should go immediately right now. Apologies for that. Okay, so I'm here today for introducing you about the OAJ, and please, as Aya already mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I already got some, and mine and others might come. So I'm serving as managing editor for the Directory of Open Access Journal since 2016, so that's been quite a while. And I will try to guide you in this journey through the OAJ. So what is the OAJ? The OAJ, the Director of Open Access Journal, is a not-for-profit initiative that was founded in 2003. So many years passed since then. And it started initially as just like a list of open access journals, because you might remember that in 2001 and 2, many things around open access happened. So some librarians around the world, but especially based in Sweden at that time, felt the need to start organizing some knowledge around open access journals. That at that time, there were not that many, but now we will see that they grew over the time. The OAJ bases its work on principles related to quality and transparency. So if you didn't have the chance yet to go through the OAJ website, you would see that everything that we do is quite well detailed on the website. But if not, if you think that something is missing, you can definitely approach me and let me know if you think that something might be better explained. The OAJ is composed by an international team, a core team of 17 members, and a huge number of volunteers all around the world that are organized in editorial groups. So we have 15 editors and more than 100 associate editors that help assessing the journals that are asking to be included in the OAJ. And the core team has the task to, the core team works on many things. First of all, to check if the journals that ask for inclusion in the OAJ really qualify for inclusion, because there is a set of basic criteria that we use, and the journal passes, like, let's say, a first screening to ensure that they are really journals and not, for example, leaflets or something like that. You could not imagine what we receive sometimes. In addition to that, what I do, for example, as a managing editor, I am responsible for the management of 3 volunteers group, which means that I have relationships with the editors and the associate editors, and I ensure that whatever question they have, I'm there to answer them. So the OAJ to date indexes 80 languages and 129 countries. This is to give you like just an overview of how international it is. And this is particularly to answer one of the questions that came in, but it was in there before. OAJ is a live index, and this means that in practical terms, the criteria that we have on the website might change to adapt and to reflect changes in publishing practices. So this means, for example, that in 2014, there was a massive change in the criteria for inclusion that led to a so-called reapplication process. So all the journals that were in the OAJ at that time were asked to submit a new application to ensure that all the new information, all the new requested information were there. And this, for example, relates to the fact that before, information about publishing costs like article processing charges was not a piece of information that was requested, while now it has to be there if a journal wants to be in the OAJ. And whenever we make any changes, these are recorded in our guide to applying that's available on the website and in our blog, where we give some kind of background information on the way we got to that change. What the OAJ offers for different users. So let's say the OAJ has plenty of documentation that is available for various users, like for publishers, because there are information on how to apply, what is the application form, and so on, for librarians and for institutions that might want to support the OAJ and to know more about the environment overall. In particular, I was anticipating this, but the OAJ provides, this is especially for publishers, but that's of the interest of anybody that could have like curiosity about how the processes work. So there is a very detailed guide to applying that explains step by step what are the pieces of information that you as a publisher will need to get your journal compliant with the guidelines of the OAJ. There is also a sample application form so that you can see before you apply, before you actually start the application process, what are the information, the pieces of information that are requested. There are also information on the Doaj Seal, and the seal is something that applies just to a very small minority of journals, but it's like a kind of an extra recognition of the effort that journals do in meeting the OAJ criteria. For example, among the Doaj Seal criteria, there is the one of making licenses available at the article level, for example, on the PDF, so that anybody downloading a PDF article from a journal knows exactly how to deal with it, what kind of uses are available. Or another of the criterion for the seal is that the journal is registered in any policy repository, or that has a policy for reusing the journal article. For example, there was a question, so this relates to that, about Sherpa Romeo and how the two initiatives are related. So for example, Sherpa Romeo is an international policy registry, which Doaj collaborates with. And the reason why the two collaborate, they are not the same thing. They are led and run by different initiatives, but the two are linked together because they are both aiming at providing the most accurate possible information about open access journals and what you can do with the content of those journals. So among the criterion for the seal, there's the one about the policy, which means that the journals either can use Sherpa Romeo for that, or can have a section on their website where they detail what kind of uses are possible. Like the authors can deposit any versions from the published version to the preprint, or they can just use the published version and the preprint is out of scope. So these are the kind of information that are included in the Doaj seal. And last but not least, there's a comprehensive guideline on best practices and transparency in scholarly publishing that's produced in collaboration with COPE. And all this information is accessible from the website, from the menu that's called Apply. And there's also plenty of documentation, of technical documentation available if you want to know, for example, how to download the full data set about DOAJ data. You can do that if you like. You can do that in many formats, and you can export and manipulate data from DOAJ, and everything you need to know is under documentation. And now the burning point, how to be indexed in DOAJ. As I mentioned, there is a list of basic inclusion criteria. And the first of them is that DOAJ indexes full open access journals only. So no hybrid journals, no journals that have an embargo or a delayed access somehow, or no journals that require users to register in order to access the contents. That's of course the principles, but you know that journals might change over the time. So there might be cases where journals were accepted in the DOAJ a long time ago, for example, after the reapplication process, but for example, in 2017. And if we are not notified of any changes, we assume that the journals are fine. So what we started doing last year is to check retrospectively all the journals that were indexed, that were included in DOAJ in specific years. For example, we already covered 2015 and 2016, and we will progressively do that in the coming months. And this is for ensuring that journals that were included in the past still meet the inclusion criteria. Coming back to the basic inclusion criteria, journals must have a registered ISSN. So journals that have that requested inclusion in the ISSN database, but whose ISSN is still to be confirmed, will not be accepted. They will be accepted for all the checks that are preliminary to the final inclusion in the database only when the ISSN is confirmed. And last but not least, each journal has to have a dedicated website. So there might be many websites speaking about the same journal, but what is important is that there is one reference website. And this reference website has to include some mandatory information, like, for example, the journal's open access policy, which is, of course, you might take it for granted as it's an open access journals, but that's not always the case. The aims and scope of the journal, the members of the editorial board that have to include the institutional affiliations of members, so that in case there are some doubts or around homonymity, that could be easily sorted out. The website should also include instructions for the authors, detailed information about the editorial processes, like how the journal carries on peer review, what are the licensing terms applied to the journal and the content, and what are the copyright terms, especially if the author is required to transfer the copyright to the publisher in order to get the article published, or if he or she can retain the rights and can just grant like a non-exclusive license to publish that specific article. And I mentioned article processing charges at the very beginning about the reapplication process. Those are needed pieces of information because whether or not the journal charges article processing charges or any kind of costs, those have to be clarified in the website. And in order to make sure that articles from the DOAJ are available for maximum dissemination, there have to be one URL per article and one there could be a full issue, like a full PDF with all the articles, but that has to be in addition to each articles being available separately. Among the other criteria, there is something that sometimes is not really clear to publishers, which is that journals must publish at least 5 articles per year. And in case of new journals, they have to demonstrate it's not just going to be one shot, so not one issue at all, but they have like planning, that they are planning to have like a publishing history. So at least 10 articles or per year, in addition to the minimum schedule of 5 per year. Okay, then what are the benefits of being indexed in DOAJ? I will go very quickly through this because I'm conscious of time, but DOAJ is well known in the publishing landscape. So being indexed in DOAJ is always a matter of being indexed in a directory that has some reputation and prominence, that adheres to standards and best practices that are commonly shared by the scholarly publishing community. And also being indexed in DOAJ is sometimes a requirement from funders all over the world. I'm thinking about, for example, something that might be closer to us, but Plan S requires journals to be in DOAJ before they are like accepted as journals to publish with. And yeah, we will see that in the next slides, but DOAJ increases the visibility of the journals and of the published output. And as I mentioned before, it has an international coverage because it covers journals from all over the world. You might have heard about predatory publishers, and in DOAJ we prefer to call them questionable publishers because we always give them the benefit of the doubt about their publishing practices, because in some cases they are not predatory, they are just low quality. But anyway, in order to make sure that we don't have that DOAJ doesn't list any questionable publisher, there is a dedicated team in DOAJ that continuously checks about questionable publishers and that ensures that publishers that apply to be included in DOAJ, if there is any suspicion they could be questionable, are checked accordingly. And there are many things that might identify a publisher as questionable, but for example, just to name a few, and directly related to DOAJ, like for example, journals might declare that they are in DOAJ while they're not, or they might have a name, a title. So the title of the journal might be kind of misleading because it might be very much similar to a very well-known and prominent journal in the field. Peer review processes are usually very, very quick and advertised as quick. So be always careful when you see a very short time between like your submission and the publication, because that means that the peer review process might have not be as accurate as it should be. The other thing is that the website might have some typos or not clear information, and information about costs, like if authors are supposed to pay for publishing or not, might not be very clear, as well as the copyright issues. But there is like a sort of a checklist that's for internal use. So I cannot share that with you, but you can imagine from this list that we check carefully every single aspect of a journal to ensure that the publishing practices of those publishers are not questionable, or questionable if that's the case. And here are some figures about the DOAJ. So there are over 70,000 journals indexed and over 6 million articles. So this means that there is a lot of information you can find in DOAJ. There is the chance to search among the articles with some keywords or among the journals. And there's also the possibility to refine your search based on filters that are, of course, specific for journals and articles. But you can, for example, in the case of journals, filter for journals that have or not an article processing charge, by discipline, by country, and so on. So you're really welcome to check the functionalities and to explore it. This is just to have you to have in front of you like the fact that users, the unique users, are increasing over the time. So they're the increase is really dramatic since the start of when we started monitoring that. And it generates, being indexed in DOAJ means that there are a lot of user sessions generated per day. And these are the data from our Google Analytics dashboard. And let's say a DOAJ being an open access database could be indexed by any of the major discovery services, which means that the chance of the journals and the articles being there to be found is really much increased thanks to that. And that's it from me. I saw that there are questions in the chat, and I will start with those, and then I will move to the ones that Aya sent to me before. So how is it in practice, open access journal with delayed access? So there might be, there are some cases of open access journals publishing, publishing issues on a periodical basis, and then just allowing, there could be many cases, but for example, allowing people that are part of the association with publishers the journal to check the articles immediately, and then granting access to everybody, like with a delay of 6 months, or in general, just granting access after a few months after the publication, which is not ideal. And this is the reason why DOAJ just wants, let's say, pure open access journals to be in there, because access should be granted immediately after upon publication. And yeah, that's also like a matter of equity in access to information. What is the basic difference between DOAJ and databases such as Scopus or ērs? Does DOAJ qualify as a database, or does it belong to a different category? So DOAJ is a list of journals, and it's not, I mean, it doesn't want to compete with any of the big bibliographic databases such as Scopus or Web of Science, because the objective is different. So DOAJ started as a database for journals, and then we found out that articles could be an added value. So I think that is the main difference. So the difference is in the scope. So we call DOAJ a directory, which is kind of a way to guide you through the open access publishing landscape in a sense, while other databases have their main objective is to let you find resources. So DOAJ wants to provide additional services by providing access to the articles, but that's not the primary scope. So just let me stop sharing this and go back to the questions that Aya sent to me. Okay. Okay, so I think I answered to this first one. Could you please give your opinion on how the acceptance of journals has changed in the past 5 years? The criteria, as I mentioned, became stricter in a way because we decided to evolution of publishing practices. So let's say they are continuously updated based on the need. And are there any criteria regarding the publishing tendencies or researchers' needs, which you also consider? Yes, for example, we decided to include proceedings journals that is something that was not foreseen in the very beginning. And of course, we are kind of having our criteria for the proceeding journals as well, but they are just in DOAJ from a certain point onward because they were not considered before. Does it mean something at DOAJ if a particular journal is indexed in Web of Science or Scopus? No, not really. I mean, we are happy for the journal if it's indexed in Web of Science or Scopus. We don't really much care about impact factor and all the rest. And of course, we do encourage journals to promote their, let's say, their medals, if any. For example, if a journal has an impact factor from Clarivate, we are more than happy if they display that, but it's not something that we check in advance. And no, we don't defer journals that are indexed in Web of Science and Scopus and those that are not, because on the same criterion. So what we check if the journals are open access or not, and if they comply with our list of criteria for inclusion, but that's not something, I mean, there's anything to deal with Web of Science or Scopus. Could you name any specific consulting services from a technical point of view which help which can help editors, editing groups, and publishers to maintain the journals? Yes, I have two in mind. One is the PKP publishing services. So PKP, you might have heard of that, is the provider of the OJS software. And they also offer services to, let's say, to support and to carry on journals. So if you have any doubts, or you would like to have your journals hosted professionally because you don't know where to have it, where to host it, they are one of the options. And the other that I have in mind is Ubiquity Press. That is, it's a publisher, but it also offers the chance for journals to be hosted there. So so I'm just pasting here the link of the hosted journals, but here there are information on how to also to get hosted at Ubiquity. So these are the two that I have in mind. And yeah, the other two I already answered, but just to remark that DOAJ and Sherpa Romeo are not specifically related one to each other. But what we try to do is to give each other some visibility in our respective website. So, for example, Sherpa Romeo has the information if a journal is indexed in DOAJ or not, and we include Sherpa Romeo among the possible policy databases where policy where the policy about a journal can be recorded, so that it's clear and transparent where to find the information. Okay, I think I'm done with the questions. But yeah, so in case there are other coming out from your mind at a later stage, here is my email address, and you can feel free to send me an email if you have any doubts or questions.
Great, Ilaria. Thank you for this valuable knowledge you shared with us today. Yeah, I think that there are no other questions. Yes. Well, I believe that participants have gained enough of information today about this directory and its aspects. If there are any other questions, we'll share with you in your email.
Thanks.
But at the moment, it looks like we're not having any. So we are about to close this event. And I just wanted to quickly remind that tomorrow at the same time, my colleague Gita will share some news on the Horizon Europe program in the open science context. So please join us tomorrow as well. And I think that's all for today. Thank you for participating and have a nice afternoon.
Thanks a million. You too.
Yeah, thank you. Keep in touch. Thanks. Bye.
Yes. Bye.